IVM.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Musafir Stories, India's very own travel podcast, where each week we discuss the story of travelers in their own words and relive their experiences with you, our listeners. Hi guys, I'm your host Saif, and our guest traveler today is Saumy Nagayach, who's based out of Pune. Saumy is an up-and-coming photographer, an enthusiastic blogger, and an IT engineer by profession. So without much ado, let's go and find out where Saumy is taking us to today. Saumy, thank you so much for being a part of the Musafir Stories and welcome to the podcast.
First of all, thank you guys for reaching out to me and inviting me for this podcast. I like the whole idea behind it. So you guys are doing a great job.
Thank you
Kudos.
so much. Yeah. Thank you, thanks a lot. And it's thanks to travelers like you who are supporting us that we can take this to a larger medium and share the joy of travel, basically. And that's the whole idea of the Musafir Stories. So thanks a lot. And getting on with the podcast, the introduction that I gave about you is pretty concise. So why don't you go ahead and tell our listeners a little bit more about yourself and when the travel bug really bit you?
Okay. So I am Saumy Nagayach and I'm a software engineer by profession. I'm basically from Bhopal. Most of the people might be knowing it as the city of lakes. So I did my engineering in information technology and then I was placed with an IT company in Bangalore.
Okay.
So I guess that is the case with all the IT engineers, I believe. So everyone ends up getting a job in the Silicon Valley of India. So currently I'm in Pune, and apart from writing code every day, I sometimes follow my heart and write poetry too.
Oh my God. That's literally two different languages.
Yeah. So basically blogging came in picture when I was waiting for my joining after graduation in 2011.
Okay.
So before that, I used to write poems in my diary, and that is when one of my friends suggested me to switch to a blog and write down my thoughts there. So my blog was all about my personal writings earlier, but later on I had keen interest in photography, so I picked up and I moved to photo stories, and so it actually instilled a bug in me to explore the world from a different perspective altogether. Like when I bought my first camera. It was my camera and an interest in history, because of which I started exploring cities, and I was going through some of my fellow bloggers' travel blogs. So it came as an inspiration that why should I not start sharing my travel experiences also. So that is how my travel blogging journey had begun actually.
Wonderful. And thank you to your friend who kind of prodded you onto blogging, I guess.
Yeah.
So, with that introduction we have now, what we usually do with these interviews in Musafir Stories, Saumy, is that we request our guest travelers to take us and our listeners on a journey to a new place, a new destination each week, and share everything about the experience that they had, everything in terms of the places to see, the activities to do, food, the local culture, people, everything from A to Z of that destination. So with that in mind, where do you want to take our listeners to today?
Well, today I will be sharing my experiences of one of the ancient cities of Madhya Pradesh, that is Dhar. So this trip was planned by my father last year in the month of December. And the main reason for doing so was because we had planned this trip to Rameshwaram earlier, but for some reason we had to cancel it.
Oh, okay.
And since I was on a week-long vacation to my hometown, so I asked my father whether we can plan out a road trip to some near places. So he planned the itinerary, and it had like Dhar, Mandu, Maheshwar, Omkareshwar, Indore and Ujjain in the list.
Yeah.
So since I was not very well aware of the places like Dhar much, so I asked my father that why are we going to Dhar?
Okay.
So it is then when he told me the history of Dhar, that the history of Dhar is much older than Mandu. and some of the historical monuments which you will definitely like and find interesting. Since my father was an archaeologist, so I knew that was definitely going to be a new and amazing experience. So
Awesome.
That is how it all started.
Yeah, and then in your father, I guess you have a very personal guide as well to take you to these wonderful places that have such a historical significance, right?
So he was the only guide actually. we didn't take any guides for any of the places to explore in brief. So he was the only guide there. So
awesome, man. And it looks like a very historical trail that you guys have covered during this 5-day road trip that you were on, right?
Yeah. So basically in Madhya Pradesh, there are 3-4 places which we normally count as the most historically magnificent places, like Ocha, Mandu, Khajuraho.
Sure.
And so we often know that, okay, Mandu is a very has a rich history. But we don't know often is that Dhar is also a place which has a rich history, though it does not have as many monuments as Mandu, but it has a rich history even older than Mandu. So it dated back to like in 10th century when it all started in Dhar.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also special in the sense that it has seen so many kingdoms and so many kings come and go, right? And that kind of adds to the uniqueness of Dhar as well. So let's get on with the trip. So you did mention that it was a 5 to 6 day road trip that you guys headed on. So it was about a day that you guys spent in Dhar, I'm assuming?
No, basically our trip started from Bhopal, and Dhar is basically 270 kilometers from Bhopal.
Okay.
So we started in an early morning, and we went via Indore, and we had our breakfast at Indore, and probably we had some plan like we will spend around 5 to 6 hours in Dhar, and then we'll go to like Mandu, and we'll stay there at night. We stay overnight at Mandu.
Okay.
Since Dhar, we had to cover Mandu also.
Right. So in that sense, one can either do this together, Mandu and the other places around that you're doing.
Absolutely.
Or
absolutely.
If someone is short on time, somebody from closer by areas who's short on time can definitely do a day trip.
Yeah, absolutely. From Indore, if anyone wants to like take a day trip, and if anyone wants to go on a day trip, then like from Indore it is hardly 65 kilometers, and if you go further 35 kilometers, then you will be in Mandu. So it will be better to club both these places and enjoy the history behind them.
Excellent. So take us on this trip to Dhar, and take us through the forts and the huge gateways, the ramparts, and whatnot.
Sure. So the places in Dhar that we had covered were basically Dhar Fort, Shala, Lat Masjid, Fadke Studio.
Okay.
So I'll go one by one. That our first destination was Dhar Fort.
Okay.
So the boundaries of the fortress is can be seen from a distance of 1 to 2 kilometers away. So it is that huge.
Yeah.
So the fortress is basically built of red stone, and it is located on a small hill, like most of the fortresses in other parts of the world. So within the it has 3 humongous gates. When you go inside, you will have to cross all the 3 gates, and within the premises there is an archaeology museum too.
Okay.
It is the district archaeology museum, and you will find it fascinating that it is one of the oldest archaeology museums in Madhya Pradesh. So it was built built in 1902. That is one thing I was not aware of.
And then just in terms of a little bit of history about the Dhar Fort, when does this date back to?
It was built in 14th century, around 1344, by the Muslim ruler Mohammed bin Tughluq.
Uh-huh.
So during that time, actually, Alauddin Khilji was at throne in Delhi, and there was a lot of activity happening in other parts of India that time. So basically, all the architecture of that time, you will find that it will have some of the other architecture related to Islamic days. So Islamic period.
Mm-hmm.
So that was in fort there are two different palaces like Sheesh Mahal and Kharbuja Palace. Okay. So Kharbuja Palace is like it is named on muskmelon fruit because its dome is shaped like a muskmelon. So so it is on the top of the fortress. So when you go on the top of Kharbuja Mahal, you can see the whole city from there. Like there is Munj Lake, which was built in 10th century by the Parmar king Munj. Okay. So he was the uncle of Raja Bhoj.
The famous Raja Bhoj, right?
I guess Raja Bhoj is one of the most celebrated rulers of India till date. So everyone knows. Yeah. So that is like it was built by it was excavated by Raja Munj, and one can see the whole city along with the lake from the top of Kharbuja Mahal. It is in good shape. It is in good condition, Kharbuja Mahal, though it is a ruin, but it is still in good condition. Along with that, you can also one can also find Sheesh Mahal, but only the remains it is not in great condition. Mm-hmm. Only there are brackets of in Turkish style. You can find that inside the fort premises. Mm-hmm. So one cannot understand that it was a part of a palace, but it is a part of a palace. And Jahangir, the Mughal ruler, he was also involved while designing this palace. So that is something like most of the people don't know that Mughal had ever been to Dhar and Mandu before, but they had great interest in both these places.
Yeah, so I think for a brief period after the Khiljis and everything, there was a time when the Mughals were there briefly, right? Before the Marathas took over?
Yeah, so Mughals were there from 16th to 18th century. And Marathas conquered in 18th century, early 18th century.
Right. If I'm not wrong, I think even the Peshwas have some history with the Kharbuja Palace, right? Was the last Peshwa?
Yeah, there is not much about Peshwas. They basically helped the Udaji Rao Pawar, the ruler who actually had conquered over the Dhar fort in 18th century. Okay. They helped him to basically conquer over Dhar. The last Peshwa was born there in Kharbuja Palace. That is a different story altogether, because at that time in Maharashtra, there was some inner conflicts were going on. So that's why the father of the last Peshwa was he sent his wife to Dhar for some time, and there she basically delivered the last Peshwa.
Interesting. So these are the two highlights within the Dhar fort, you said, right? The Sheesh Mahal and the Kharbuja Palace?
Yeah.
Okay. And tell us a little bit more about the archaeological museum as well, Saumy. You mentioned that it is one of the oldest museums in India as well. What does one get to see there?
There are excavated sculptures of 10th or 11th century from Parmar period. So it is something that you will not find in other museums, because that is from 900 to 1000 years old history we are talking about. Yeah. So that is something very unique, and you will find inscriptions of that Parmar period and even the Mughal period also. They are kept in the museum. Those are written in Urdu and Sanskrit. So when we visited the museum, basically there was a exhibition going on Raja Bhoj.
Okay.
So many of his paintings, his life was actually depicted through paintings there. So it was an awesome experience because I had studied about Raja Bhoj in my curriculum before, but I never knew that he was such a great man. He worked a lot for his kingdom, and he was a great statesman.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was good timing as well, in the sense that there was this exhibition about his life going on that way.
Yeah.
I think you get to see more bits of his, more bits and more facets of his life, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So, how much more time did you spend at the Dhar fort?
So we spent around 2 hours in Dhar fort. Basically, it was covering the archaeology museum, and then covering the exploring the Kharbuja Mahal and Sheesh Mahal, and going around the boundary, ramparts, checking out the ramparts and of the fort, and going and exploring about the place. Awesome. And some photography.
For the reference of our listeners, I should call out that Saumy does have some beautiful pictures on his blog, put up on his blog as well. So one should definitely go and check out his blog, saumynagayach.blogspot.in. Am I right, Saumy?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
And we'll definitely use the handles and the links in the show notes section of the podcast as well, so that our listeners can readily refer to them and look at those beautiful pictures of the fort and some of the other monuments that Saumy will cover in the next few minutes as well. The one thing that I wanted to ask Saumy was getting about in the fort, right? Are there facilities available, or is this walkable completely?
It is walkable, though I will definitely say that the facilities are not that great.
Okay.
Because people of Dhar does not know much about the history, and they don't take interest also. To promote and to make it more open for others, they have to promote it in a better way.
Okay.
So this is the state government and the state archaeology departments. They have to look after it in a better manner. That is something which should be done in Dhar, because most of the people don't even know that Dhar exists. Any place like Dhar exists on the map.
Absolutely, and I think it is definitely the prerogative of the state tourism boards, right? Because I see that compared to some of the other forts, even though MP Madhya Pradesh does have a huge collection of historical monuments, they're very, very underrated, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There are many places in and around MP.
So hopefully that'll catch up and more people get to visit it. But I guess the one good thing that might be helpful that you're one of the early visitors is that there's not the crowds to deal with, right? That way you have the peace of mind to kind of go and explore the place by yourself.
This is something I was lucky. I was fortunate enough to I couldn't find any crowd there, but my father told me that you will not get any crowd here because no one knows that how fascinating the place is. So nobody visits it.
It's true. But yeah, you never know. Soon we might have people catching up to the history and lots of people visiting there. And anyway, moving on from the Dhar fort, where next did you stop at?
So our next stop was Bhojshala. So basically in Dhar, if anyone knows any specific place, it is the Bhojshala.
Okay.
So it was built in way back in 10th century. And it was built by the great King Raja Bhoj. And the main objective of building that place was he basically built it as a center for learning. So he kept the he also placed the Saraswati idol over there, and he built a temple around it. but when Mughals invaded, so they destroyed the whole place and they took away the ruins of the place, some of the ruins of that place. And right now the idol of Saraswati, it is in UK. It was taken back by the Britishers during their time.
Oh, okay.
So it is in UK. I don't know the exact place, but it is in UK right.
Okay. And what's the state of the Bhodshala as of now, Saumy?
So if you say that okay, it is more than 900 years old place,
exactly.
you will still say that it is in good shape. So because the pillars are well polished, and like you can see the intricate detailing on the pillars, and the stone carvings are magnificent, and even you can read some of the inscriptions written over the walls. So that is something that really amazes anyone. Whoever has interest in history, they will find it really amazing that a place which is more than 900 years old is still standing high in.
Yeah. And so basically Bhodshala is a learning center, you mentioned, right?
Yeah, it was built for basically learning, and Raja Bhoj was a knowledgeable person. He used to write literature and poetries also. So it might be possible that some of the inscriptions written on the walls might be written by Raja Bhoj or some of the knowledgeable persons of that time. So we are not sure though, but it is one place which was built just because of just to basically transpire learning.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to call out, looking at your pictures, that there's this beautiful symmetry about the pillars, right? And they stretch as far as the eye can see. So the pillars are absolutely beautiful. That's something that stood out for me.
Yeah, it was totally blissful.
Awesome. So you spent what, an hour, 2 hours there, or was that short?
Yeah, we spent around an hour because as you already mentioned, that the symmetry was something I had never seen. So I was amazed by the symmetry, and I was observing the whole place quite closely. And since my father was a guide, so he guided me. He gave me the whole detour that okay, this is basically what is written on the wall and something and other things like that.
Lucky you.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, moving on from Bhodshala, where did you guys head out to next?
So, the next stop was basically Lat Masjid. So, there is one amazing thing, Lat Masjid was built in 15th century by Dilawar Khan. But it was not built from, it was built from the ruins of Hindu and Jain temples. Though it was a masjid, but it was built from the Hindu and Jain temples, ruins of Hindu and Jain temples. So those Hindu and Jain temples were built in the reign of the Parmar kings. So I guess they were destroyed during the fight they had to conquer the city. So it must have been destroyed that time. And Dilawar Khan, who was the first ruler of Muslim period from 15th Islamic period from 15th century to 16th century. So he was the first ruler of Malwa region. Basically, so Dhar was the capital of Malwa region that time. By that time. So so it remained as the capital of Malwa region until Hoshang Shah, one of the rulers at Mandu, actually shifted Dhar to shifted the capital from Dhar to Mandu. Because Mandu is something most of the rulers had keen interest in Mandu because of all the natural natural resources it had actually.
Yeah, and
So
it was located strategically as well, right? Even though
yeah,
it's not too far away, but from a geographical perspective as well, it was located strategically. That might
yeah,
have
it
been a
was
reason
hard to
too.
conquer Mandu actually.
Exactly.
Since it was a hill fort, it was a natural hill fort, and
Yeah,
it was hard to conquer.
absolutely.
So most of the Mughal influence also, if you see that, you will find most of the architecture of Mughal influence in Dhar and Mandu, both places.
That's so true.
So Lat Masjid basically has a courtyard in between, and you will find the same sort of uh, like stone carvings in Lat Masjid as are they in Bhochala. Because
Okay.
it was built in around the same time. The temples and Bhochala were built in around the same time, more or less the same time. So Lat Masjid, basically we define Lat as iron in
Yeah,
English.
that's
So the meaning of Lat is iron.
Yeah.
So there is a pillar in the premises of Lat Masjid, which is kept outside the masjid. So basically, it was destroyed, I guess, in 14th century. It was destroyed in 13th, 14th century. So it is kept there. It is of basically iron. It is black in color, and some of the Sanskrit and Urdu inscriptions also written over it. So it was gifted to Raja Bhoj exactly. So he placed that in the city, in the city, in the middle of the city, but somehow it was destroyed, and it was then placed um, uh, in the premises of Lat Masjid.
Right, and that's
So that is how it got.
right?
Yeah. This was built from the ruins of temple, so it is not. You will not see that. You will not find that it is even a mosque. You will. It looks a bit different. So even I was not sure that is it really a mosque or something else.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, given the history that it was built on the ruins of Hindu and Jain temples, it might not look like the typical mosque. You're right about that.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. So some more good photo opportunities there, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, sure. Everything for photographers actually. It was a blissful place.
Yeah, so especially for somebody who is into photography of historical monuments and such. I think MP in general, and specifically places like Dhar and Mandu, Orcha even, they're literally paradise. Yeah, Maheshwar.
Yeah, absolutely.
Paradise.
They have such a rich history that we don't know how old these places are, but the work done during that time is incomparable. Like no one can do it these days, because I don't know how they did it in that period, but nowadays even the artists nowadays will feel a bit envy.
I know. And a lot of patience as well for the kings who got them made, because some of these were built over a period of several years, right? Probably even decades in some cases.
Even some of the monuments took time, like the king who started building the place, he was dead by the time it was completed. Yeah. So it was built in someone else's reign.
Absolutely. So you're very right about it. Even though we have things like technology and better resources these days, I doubt we'd be able to recreate some of the intricate architecture.
Maybe the eye for detailing was better then.
That's true. Awesome. So what next from the Lat Masjid, after the Lat Masjid?
The next stop was basically Phadke Studio. It was not basically the historical monument, but it was a museum that was built by Raghunath Krishna Phadke, and so it was built by Raghunath Krishna Phadke and Nana Bhujang. So they were extremely talented artists, and they used to make these sculptures like clay. They had great hand in building this clay arts, and they had made many sculptures from marble and clay. So many of their artifacts are installed in different parts of the country and even abroad. So they were from Dhar. These two were the most prominent personalities.
Okay. And then the style of the clay art that you speak of, how is that, like more contemporary, or is that resembling more from the say sculpture of the past? How is that?
So it is both actually. Like they will make the artifacts from after, if they want to make a copy of certain figure, then they will make the statue of that figure. They will make idols also of gods and other public figures. They will make artifacts from contemporary worlds, they don't even know that is there anything exists like that or not. So it is a mix of both. Many of the artifacts from which they had built, you can see them in this museum. So it is a bit far from the city. It is not located in the city. It is around 6 to 7 kilometers out of the city. But it is a must visit place because most of the people do not know about Raghunath Krishna Phadke and what he did for the industry as an artist.
And he was a native of Dhar, you mentioned?
Yeah.
Awesome. And in terms of magnitude, how big is this museum, Saumy?
It is a small museum. It will hardly take 20 minutes to 30 minutes because there are only sculptures kept there, and the students of Raghunath Krishna Phadke work there, and they work on the artifacts, new artifacts. Even these days also, they install their artifacts at several places in India.
Interesting. And I was also going to ask you earlier, but maybe this is a good segue. In terms of, say, guides to show you around the places, right? Of all these places you covered, right from the Dhar Fort to the Bhotshala, the Lat Masjid, and now the Phadke studio. Is that facility available, or how is this?
So if you go to the Dhar Fort and if you go to Bhotshala, you will find one or two guides mostly, but the condition is not great actually. People don't often take interest also. So the resources are very less. And whatever authorities if the State Archaeology or Archaeological Survey of India or Tourism Department, if everyone is doing their bit, then they must have some resources in Dhar so that they can help others to explore the city in a better way.
Absolutely. And for somebody getting around, I know you guys were doing this as a part of a road trip, so it might not have been too much of a problem. But for somebody who's, say, backpacking, is there facilities to get around? How does one commute from one place to the other?
So the nearest railway station and airport from Dhar is in Indore. And Indore is located at around 65 to 70 kilometers from Dhar.
Right.
So one can get cabs from Indore, one can get even state transport buses from Indore and even private buses also. So it is easily commutable from Indore.
Okay, that's good to know. So before we kind of start wrapping this up, so what we also do is each time when we have guest travelers, we do ask them about their experiences with the local culture or the food, and even any interactions, memorable interactions with people they have. But given that these places are so underrated and even sparsely crowded in a lot of instances, any memorable stories from these trips?
There was not much actually since it was a road trip, and as I already mentioned that there were no resources also to guide us in a better way. So basically, if you like, we already had our breakfast at Indore, so we didn't we didn't spend any more time in having like lunch or breakfast and evening snacks in Dhar, because as we had to go to Mandu also.
Right.
So food wise, like whatever you get in Indore, like the snacks are good. You can get good poha and
poha, of course,
poha jalebi. So these are something like you will find in Malwa region. You will find poha jalebi at every place. Like it is of great quality. So you will not get in other part of the country.
Yeah.
So it is something very very delicious.
Awesome. And if I had to ask you to call out one most memorable moment from this trip, what would that be?
So I was not expecting much from Bhojshala, because when you look from outside of the building, you will say that there is nothing much inside it. But when I entered the gate of Bhojshala, the symmetry of the pillars and the intricate detailing on the pillars were like awe-inspiring. So I loved the whole place. The feeling was there, like whatever used to be there in those times of 10th and 11th century. So I loved that bit of the road trip to Dhar.
Absolutely. And speaking of Bhojshala, as you said, it does look very unassuming from the outside, but once you get in there, the level of detail given to some of the sculptures there and the symmetry, as you mentioned, all of that, and the fact that this is back from the 10th century and maybe older, that kind of is the icing on the cake, right? It makes it even more special. So, Saumya, thank you so much for being an excellent guide. I know your father played a good guide to you, but thank you for playing an excellent guide to us and our listeners and taking us back in time to that part of history where the great Raja Bhoj to the Mughals and the Peshwas even were a part of this place, right? So thank you so much for taking us back in history and giving us a flavor of the beautiful architecture and the grandeur of this majestic city, which today might look like it's not as hip and happening, but back in the day it used to be one of the centers of power where all the big kings ruled India, sitting there, right?
Absolutely.
So thanks a ton for that, and we look forward to hearing more such stories from you. Saumy, before we let you go, what is the best way for our listeners to follow your work and keep in touch with you?
So they can follow me on Twitter. They can reach out to me on my Gmail ID through mail, and I'm always available over my blog. They can just leave a comment and ask me anything.
Absolutely. soumynagayach.blogspot.in. That's where you head to and look at all the beautiful pictures and that stories that Saumya writes so profoundly. So thank you again, Saumya. We look forward to seeing more work from you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. That was yet another great episode of the Musafir Stories. If you guys like the show, please subscribe to us on iTunes, Audioboom, Stitcher, Pocket Radio, or any other podcasting app that's available on iOS or Android. You could also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We go by the handle The Musafir Stories. Or, if it suits you, you could email us at themusafirstories@gmail.com and visit our website www.themusafirstories.com for more information. All of these links will be made available in the show notes section of the podcast. So here's to more traveling, sharing, and inspiring. Stay tuned for our next episode. Until then, happy travels and goodbye.